Welcome to Saxon Math, Lesson 111, Volume and Surface Area of a Sphere. Now, before we get into the lesson, there's some vocabulary that you're going to want to remember. The first one is volume. Remember that volume is the amount of three-dimensional space within an object. The second one is surface area, which is the measurement of the outside layer of a shape. It's what's going around, wrapped around the shape itself. Now that we've gone over that vocabulary, we're going to jump into our new info. Now, our first thing that we're going to be talking about today is the volume of a sphere. Now, a volume of a sphere is 2/3 of the volume of a cylinder with the same radius and a height equal to the diameter of the sphere. Now, that's a fancy way of saying a cylinder that's as tall as the sphere is and as wide as the sphere is. This would be the smallest cylinder that could hold this sphere. If it was any smaller, the sphere would stick out. Now, you might remember that when we learned about pyramids and prisms, or pyramids and cones are 1/3 of the volume of a cylinder or a prism. Now, a sphere is 2/3 of the volume of the equivalent prism. So what we can do to find the formula for the volume of a sphere is we can take that radius, and then the diameter, height, and plug those variables into the volume formula for a cylinder, and then find 2/3 of that volume to have the formula for the volume of a sphere. So if we say that the height is the diameter, or 2 radius, then pi times radius squared times 2 times radius will give you 2 radius cubed pi. Now, in order to find the volume, that would be the volume of the cylinder, but remember the sphere is 2/3 of that. So if we have 2/3 of 2, I'm going to write 2 as 2/1, radius cubed times pi. 2/3 of 2, well, if we multiply the top by the top, that's 4/3 of the radius cubed pi. And that's our formula for the volume of a sphere. Volume is equal to 4/3 the radius cubed times pi. Now, in order to find the surface area of a sphere, we're going to use this same cylinder as before, but the cool thing about surface area of a sphere is it's equal to just the lateral area of this cylinder. It's just the part wrapped around. If you've ever gotten one of those plastic wraps for an Easter egg, where you put the cylinder of plastic around the egg, then you get it hot, and the cylinder kind of shrinks down around the egg and covers it up. This is the same concept, where if you were to pinch the tops together of this cylinder, this area around the cylinder would cover the sphere exactly. So we're going to have 2 pi times the radius times the height. That's the formula for lateral area. Now, the height here is 2 times r. So we have 2 times pi times radius times 2 times radius. Well, if we multiply 2 times 2, that'll give us 4. And radius times radius is radius squared times pi. In other words, 4 radius squared pi is the surface area of a sphere. Now you'll notice there's a lot of 4's in the formula for sphere. That's one of the ways you can try and remember it. We got 4/3 of radius cubed for volume. We got 4 times radius squared for surface area. Now we're going to go ahead and jump into example 1. Example 1 says a ball with diameter 20 centimeters has a volume of how many cubic centimeters? And we want to round to the nearest 100 cubic centimeters. Well, the information we're given is that we've got a diameter of 20, which means that we have a radius of half of that, which is 10. Now, we're told that we're going to be rounding to the nearest 100 cubic centimeters. Now, if we're going to have to round, we can't leave pi as pi, so we're going to use pi as 3.14. Now, our formula is volume equals 4/3 pi r to the power of 3. So we're going to have 4/3 times 3.14 times 10 centimeters cubed. Now, when you multiply out 10 cubed, 10 times 10 is 100. 100 times 10 is 1,000 centimeters cubed. So when we multiply 1,000 by 3.14, that'll be 3,140 centimeters cubed. Now, if you find 4/3 of 3,140, you're going to get about 4,186 and 2/3 centimeters cubed. Now, we're rounding it to the nearest hundred, and so we look at the number to the right of 1, which is 8. 8 is above 5, so it's going up, so we would say it's 4,200 centimeters cubed, or 4,200 centimeters cubed. And that's example 1. As you can see, we plugged in our given values into the formula. We cubed 10 to get 1,000. We multiplied 3.14, which was pi, by 1,000 to get 3,140. We multiplied 4/3 of 3,140 to get 4,186 and 2/3. And then, finally, we rounded that to the nearest hundred as 4,200 cubic centimeters. Example 2 says that the diameter of a softball is nearly 10 centimeters. Find the surface area in both terms of pi and using 3.14 for pi. Well, we're given that the diameter is 10, which means the radius is 5. The formula for surface area is 4 times pi times radius squared. So we're going to have 4 times pi times 5 squared. Now 5 times 5 is 25. So we're going to have 4 times pi times 25 centimeters squared. And 4 times 25 is 100 pi centimeters squared. Now, 100 pi centimeters squared is in terms of pi. If we're going to use 3.14 for pi, all we have to do is plug in 3.14 right here. So we're going to take that 100, and we're going to say 100 times 3.14 centimeters squared, which is 314 square centimeters. And that is example 2. All right, this has been lesson 111. I hope you all have a fantastic Friday. Stay safe, stay inside, and wash your hands.